Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on Wednesday, May 14th at 12:17 p.m. Ah, so here, after all these years, how do you know when you're wrong? How do you know when you're right? You don't know the answer to either one of those questions, but what you have to have is the capacity to stand by your opinion, which is why it's not about being wrong or right. And that's why we have these three particular rules that I talk about so often. The rules are irrespective of wrong or right. I hope that's very obvious at this point. So if I'm following my rules, rule number one, own more assets. Rule number two, know when to stop buying assets. And rule number three, fuck you, pay me. That has nothing to do with being wrong or right. Things that I buy associated with rule number one, own more assets, may in fact not be good investments. They frankly actually may not be investments at all, depending on the diversification of the portfolio at any given moment, as were discussing Cleaver yesterday or the day before. And how that's outside the scope of clearly rule number three being an attribute, but I have that luxury because of the portfolio size and whatnot. So it's not about being wrong or right. In my life, I've gotten many things wrong. I was wrong in 2016. I was wrong in 2017. I got things wrong in 2020, 2021. Not much to get wrong in 2018, 19. That was probably really reminds me of 23 and 24. What could possibly get wrong? Everything was always down, meaning you buy something and it probably went to a lower price. Um, so it's not like you could really be right, and you weren't proven right until 2020, at least March of 2020, if not summer of 2020. I have so many things that have alarms on them. So that's where we are, in my opinion. We've had the last couple of years to do what we did in 2018, 2019, which is like 23 and 24, and now we're 25, and we've already are hundreds of percent off bottom for many assets, and that should pretty much tell you whether you're right or wrong on particular assets. But don't take comfort in that. Don't take comfort that you've been proven right thus far. It's irrelevant. It's not about being right. It's about the portfolio doing what you intended for it to do, to be productive. And that's it. And how productive is it? Which is why the measure of a portfolio has nothing to do with net worth. Total net worth is the most useless characteristic of a portfolio. What matters is how productive it is. And then adherence to the rules. So your portfolio, measure your success in terms of how productive the portfolio is over time and how well you adhere to your rules. So if your portfolio is productive, you're accumulating capital at certain times of the year, and then you're accumulating assets according to rule number one. And at certain times of the year, you're not accumulating assets according to rule number two. And the entire time you're adhering to rule number three, in which case the productivity of your portfolio is improving over time, which has nothing to do with being wrong or right. You get some things wrong, you get some things right, and that's okay. And many failures, what matters is continuing and sticking to it and accumulating more assets over time. Just not shit assets, which is why we have rule number three. This is why we don't talk about this is why we don't talk about assets that are not productive, because that's the most important characteristic in my opinion. DXY at 100.8, sandwiched between the 50 SMA and the 100 SMA in the monthly, pretty much indecisive zone, and look like we look like we're going to be here for quite some time. Nothing big to take away. for today. Today is an indecisive day. We have no breach of directionality to the downside. We have a bit of support in regards, um, but that doesn't mean anything because we also have resistance. We are sandwiched in the zone of indecisiveness. Bitcoin price is silly to look at. It's at the verge of a giant breakout to the upside, which will give people a false positive bias. And you don't want that. What you want is to be reasonable. And to be reasonable, you're like, all right, fine. It takes time for it to go up and to break out. So if you're thinking about the Bitcoin price going up, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're thinking about the noise. More importantly, is what the macro says, and the macro says you better be patient. That's exactly what this chart says right here. Be patient. Um, Me, no interest whatsoever. Let other folks play on the fringes of the risk curve. And there's plenty of big names that are playing on the fringes of the risk curve with regard to Silly and with regard to Barachain and whatever. And that's okay. I have no need to. I have more important things to do. And I have enough assets. Um, that's just my 2 cents. Do you really, really want to buy something? Then buy something. Are you literally going to sell something you already own to buy something else? If you sell something you own to buy something else, were you wrong about the thing you're selling? Or are you cannibalizing something you already own? Something you already own in order to own something else? Why would you cannibalize? Something you own should be productive and afford you a capacity to own something else. Should never cannibalize already acquired positions unless you are invalidating the correctness of that position or the narrative of that position. In which case, sell the whole thing and buy something you think is a better allocation or a better investment. Um, I don't know. Right now, my 2 cents is stack cash on the way up, check back in 27, 28. That's my 2 cents. And on the way up, we're talking into next year. So next year, probably whenever, and just stack cash. And then everything falls apart at some point, and then you're able to buy things at discounted prices. Because right now, everything's going up. Do you want to buy before they go up? I don't know. I don't. That's my 2 cents, and that's my playbook. Stack cash on the way up, buy things after they collapse, and things look to be going up in price. So I'm not going to be buying things as they go up in price. Velodrome fees look good this epoch. Very nice. That's why we own Velodrome for a long time now. It's a very nice position, in my opinion. It's quite productive, and I think it will do very well in the portfolio. Um, It's almost at break-even price from when I acquired Velodrome, which is nice to see, which means the entire time I've owned it, it has been productive. And the entire time I continue to own it, it will continue to be productive. And it's also compounding its rebases. Yay. And it will continue its superchain expansion, which is very nice to see as well. Obviously, Ramses and a couple of other Kingdom projects are taking the back burner. Shadow at the forefront, which isn't really part of Kingdom. Nile taking the lead with the Linnea narrative and consensus. Yay. And overall, the entire portfolio is healthy when you look at it holistically. Some things do well, some things do poorly. And that is the whole point of a portfolio. It's to find balance. And just because something is doing poorly doesn't mean you let go of it. You only let go of it if the narrative isn't validated, and you tend to sell the losers and buy the winners. And that's okay. And that is what do we do? What do we sell to buy? We sold Aura. I did over the last year. I did get rid of that convex exposure. I concentrated in the curve and the Aura. A little bit of diversification. Was it, or was it just cash at the time? I don't even remember if I sold something to buy something. That's irrelevant. Overall, I like where we're at. Gold back down to 3183. This just tells us patience is needed. Look, we've had how many months of straight vertical gold pricing? One, two, three, four. And we're finally getting barely a bit of a pullback. It's going to take some time for this market to play out. Some time. What does that even mean? What do people even talk about when they throw around these statements of time and opinion? It's going to take some time for this market to play out. Fuck. What are we going to die in like a month, a year? Is there a time frame in people's minds? The market is going to continuously be. The market will continuously take time to play out and continuously go up and then down and then up and then down. That's why the entirety of my conversation over the years is everyone has these silly ideas in their mind. And the most meaningful perspective to possibly have on markets is to turn off every idea you've ever heard on social media and realize there has to be a simpler way. That's the whole point of the three rules. It's kind of like the three laws from iRobot. I don't know. Three simple rules that govern fundamental choices and behavior. Didn't work out so well in that movie, but that's another story. Um, and the biggest identification that we could have in these crypto markets, which is the five businesses. So three rules, five businesses. Everyone makes it more complicated than it needs to be. And we talk about the same thing over and over again because everyone has fear that they're wrong. And finally, as Peter says, the VE33 on Solana shipping was at Solve 3. Finally. And where's Alto? The Tapioca relaunch. I look forward to that. The Liquidity relaunch. It's coming in 4 days. I look forward to that. Look forward to things. Look forward to things that are coming. Good things are coming. And then everything else is noise, especially opinions of top and bottom and bull market top and deflationary collapse. And everyone is lost in their own little world of noise and own more assets. Because if there comes a time when owning more assets is not relevant, then the asset you really needed to own was guns and bullets. Okay, so that's not really something to bet on. That's something to have a little bit of inventory. That's a hedge of a bet. It's prepping. Uh, and if you're into that kind of thing, that's cool. I know a lot of folks over the years that have their toys or professional toys. They take it very seriously. Um, it's either that or own more assets. Morton Joe is our next president, or the assets that we own are going to be very useful and meaningful to the system as it is and will continue to be constructed. Simple. They have no date on Solve 33 anymore. Retracted previous date given. Great. More more of nothing from Solana. A useless chain thus far. Nothing to invest in. Curve turned 2 years old today. That's nice. One of the biggest dollar liability products most interesting, most meaningful, or most technologically um, intriguing thus far? It's been 2 years. Wow. You saw Liquid EV2's coming, the relaunch on the 19th, 5 days. I love this SpongeBob GIF. I will continue to use it. He has a particularly strong stance and a lean in that left knee that I appreciate. And obviously the tongue twirl just tops it all off. Um, this ends in one way. So, it gets gross. It's gross. The system is gross. It's perverted. It's disgusting. Hard money advocates. Ray Dalio's on his hard money binge. And but that just means they're going to find ways to spin the debt even further because if you don't have a redeemable currency for a scarce money, that was replaced with treasuries. And the treasuries are the money until you have loss of faith in 10, 20, 30 years. And if you have loss of faith in 5 years, then you're in the guns and butter, and guns and bullets situation you should have invested in. So what the fuck is it? It's like everyone thinks that when the system fails and the loss of faith in the dollar and everyone stops using the dollar, that there's like not some sort of period of anarchy and chaos. Like all of a sudden everyone's going to use Bitcoin for money. And all of a sudden everyone's going to use BRICS currency for money. And it's going to be like, okay, my boss pays me in dollars and now he pays me in something else. I mean, it's fine. That's literally crazy. The folks underestimate repeatedly how sensitive humans are to inconsistent and a breakdown of the status quo. They literally go crazy. Humans very easily go crazy, and there's anarchy and chaos. But there is no transition to an alternative system. There's nothing like that. It doesn't work. There will be chaos and anarchy. So either the system continues in its current form or there's anarchy and chaos, in which case Immortan Joe may be president or guns and ammo should have been invested in instead of as your asset of choice. Okay? So the simplest thing to do is to own more assets. The assets that we choose are likely to be the foundation for how they continue to use debt instruments as money instead of hard money like gold. Because if the system fails, where do you think Bitcoin's heading? Where do you think all of our assets are heading? If you have that deflation, then it really is literally gold. And Peter Schiff, so as much as he's wrong about so many things, he just doesn't know how to tell the story, in my opinion. Not that I'm the best storyteller either, but in the end, he's right. Meaning, in the end, if there was the ultimate deflation and everything collapsed, all that's left is gold and other precious metals. But gold has the history, it has the precedence, it has the historic story. So he's right. The thing he's wrong about is the time happening anytime soon. And if it is, then we all better uh, visit our favorite place of prayer, because that'll be a period of chaos and anarchy. Um, so I guess this was the best. This is one of my best, most recent expressions of the story that we tell over and over again. All we do all day long is talk about what government wants to do, the administration's policy, what the banks are doing at the OCC, the SEC is doing, what they're going to do with treasuries and use stable coins to issue and buy the treasuries, and what they're going to do with the dollars, with the stable coins. We talk about the same story over and over again because it's not a story from me. I mean, obviously, it's something I talk about, but it's from the macro folks, the Raoul Pals, and the other macro folks that have the same story, which I collate and assimilate and retell in my language. It's the same story. We all tell the same story. And what's so awkward is how like Peter Schiff defends his story so vigorously, but it's literally the same exact story as Brent Johnson's story about how the end of the dollar is that the DXY goes to infinity and beyond. The dollar becomes too powerful and too strong. And it's the same story as Luke Roman. It's all the same story. When you zoom out enough and you get macro enough and you put things into perspective, okay? The exact same story. So, how much more obvious can the optimal investment be? We've been literally talking about what to invest in for the last 3 years. How many times can we reiterate assets that are um, immutable, that have rule number three, fuck you, pay me, that are assets of one of the five businesses of crypto: foreign exchange, credit, derivatives, liquidity financing, and liability printing? All right, we talked about it. What do you got? New assets every day to talk about? And if you have a new asset coming online and you're like, is my tried and tested, mother approved asset that survived 2022 invalidated? We should sell some of the good stuff in order to buy some of the new stuff. I think folks underappreciate, in my opinion, how much or how little the space has monetized thus far. Meaning the likes of Aave and Curve and Liquidity and Balancer and just old what these kids would call old stuff or dino coins. I don't think folks understand how little it has monetized. I think I think that is probably the biggest underestimation in these crypto markets because we have the administration saying exactly what they want to do. We have the SEC saying what is going to happen pretty much right around the corner. Ethereum staking on Wall Street? Jesus. It's going to be a weird year with 10 trill having to come out of treasury. Folks waited through 3 years since 2022 and cheap Bitcoin prices at $16,000. And now they're having trouble waiting the last 5 minutes in 2025 before the debt ceiling goes up $4 trillion from the Republican bill that we just heard about. This is why the few have everything, because the majority have too much emotion in the process. Or it's not even too much. There's no excuse to have any emotion in the process. Investing is not kind on persons that have emotion involved in their process. I don't see how it's even debatable anymore what to invest in. I mean, it's literally it's a relatively stable landscape. What else is there? It's the same stuff that we talk about every stream. What's new? Or are we indecisive? If we're indecisive, I think that's something else. I think folks need to pick up meditation and saunas and acupuncture and more so things like that rather than investing. And leave the investments. Step away. You're thinking about them too much. You did all the work over the last years. What happened over the last years? You put in the work, and now you get to reap the benefits of the work you did between 22, 23, and 24. Did you see JP Morgan did a transaction on Ondo? Is that getting, I hope that folks aren't getting excited about Ondo Finance. Crypto Condom talks about Ondo the way they should be talked about. But what's pertinent is, isn't that what we've always talked about? Them moving capital into crypto, and there's transaction fees there, and or there's tokenized treasuries there, which means there's tokenized money. And what do you do with tokenized money? You print currency. And what do you do with currency? You buy things. How do you buy things? Using foreign exchanges. How do you convert money into currency? Credit. And we just talked about business one and business two, foreign exchange and credit. What do you do with the treasuries? You print liabilities. It's business five. Okay. So it's one of the five businesses. I have no interest whatsoever in Ondo. Talk about literally chasing the narrative, but you point out something very meaningful. Confluence. Just endless confluence. They executed a transaction. And I'm like, all right, cool, great. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. More validation. There were several wars fought to make US dollar and to make it the reserve currency. It makes sense that it falls apart. More of the same will take place for the next currency to be picked. War. Well, see, here's the thing, and you're not entirely right about reserve currency. So reserve currency is like an organic manifestation. It's a consensus-driven phenomena, just like an Ethereum upgrade or a Bitcoin hard fork or whatever. Um, if people are and countries and corporations are choosing to accumulate dollars as they have dollar denominated expenses, that's what a reserve currency is. Next year, I got to buy X amount of shit for my business, or next year, I got to pay X amount of interest on this debt I got. And you're saving in a particular currency, and it happens to be dollars. All right, great. Why are you saving in dollars? Because I got a whole bunch of dollar interest I got to pay next year. Or I got a whole bunch of inventory, and the guy who's selling me the inventory out of Malaysia wants dollars, so I got to save and accumulate dollars. So that's all reserve means. So reserve is an organic manifestation of, you know, everyone's choice. So the reserve currency isn't a manifestation of war, it's a manifestation of choice. And it was choice because we, the uh, our currency, the dollar, has been less of a debauchery than other currencies. So it is the most trusted piece of shit in a big pile of shit. So, and it's not about not being trusted, it's about being trusted more than other shit. Um, so even aside from that and the wars and the trust and whatnot, you still have the outstanding debt. Got to understand why would you buy the US dollar if you're not transacting with them? All right, so fine. How do you even stop transacting in the dollar? It doesn't make any sense to me given the amount of debt that's out there. You don't understand when people say the amount of debt that's out there, it's dollar debt. So if India owes Brazil $100 million in interest, Brazil wants their dollars. You know why Brazil wants to get paid their dollar interest on their debt that India owns? Because or whatever that You know what I'm trying to say. Because they themselves owe those dollars to someone else or need those dollars to buy something dollar denominated. So it is, I don't know, it's so simple to me, which is why I tell the story so simply. And this is Brent Johnson's wheelhouse. It's the Eurodollar system that I've tried to explain to folks. It has momentum. So there's no, it makes sense that if it falls apart, there is no it falls apart. That there is no quote unquote it falls apart. Next currency. There is no next currency. There is no instantaneous transition. The only way a transition occurs is if everyone collectively decides to pay back debt or they default on it. If they pay back the debt, the dollar goes straight up in price. If they default on the debt, then there's likely war because Brazil is pissed off at Argentina because they defaulted on debt. Or Australia is pissed off at Greenland. I don't fucking know. I'm just literally taking any country, every country around the world, because everyone owes everyone debt. When you see a country raise dollars by selling dollar bonds, they owe dollar interest. Those were the headlines out of Canada. They were most recently that people didn't understand at all. Where Canada was selling dollar bonds, and they're like, well, so clearly they were selling these bonds and people were paying dollars for these Canadian bonds. And these bonds are backed by Canadian real estate, let's say. The interest on these bonds that people bought from Canada are paid in what? Dollars. So somehow Canada has to come up with dollars to pay the interest on bonds that they sold. They sold the bonds to raise dollars, $100 million, whatever. And now they owe a bunch of interest, as well as the principal back on maturity, because it's borrowed money. Okay. Now, how deep is that rabbit hole that the world built? 300 trillion. How much United States debt is there? What, 38 trillion? So it seems like the world printed 10 times, give or take, the amount of dollars than the US did. The world opted into this. They chose this. It wasn't because of war. It was their choice. They all tell the same story from a different angle with different asset. But yes, exactly. It's exactly right. Everyone has their own biases, but it's literally the exact same story. And my asset bias is obviously rule number 1 through 3 for the 5 businesses in crypto. That's my bias because that is what leaves me calm, cool, and collected. I don't have to think about too much shit, and I understand how to measure my success. Arrow, Balancer, and others seem to have fallen by the wayside in terms of metrics and attention. What's the value prop for focusing on other protocols like that? Diversification. What if the market is big and there's multiple successes? What if we're wrong? And like, look, what if Curve fails and Balancer becomes the holy grail of crypto and governments issue treasuries on it? And there's $100 trillion running through it. I mean, clearly that doesn't make any sense based on current market conditions. That's the whole point of diversification. What's the what if you're wrong? Does that make sense? So you can concentration is how you change your financial future. And diversification is how you protect in case you're wrong. If you're right and you're nicely concentrated, you do very well. If you're wrong and you have some sort of protection, you're probably still you do pretty well also. That's the rationale there. Hey Cap, what's happening? Athletic concept in the house. Much pleasure. Anything else to talk about today? Dominance looks like crap. Ethereum was literally 100 SMA mean regression on the monthly. Whether it's log or not, it doesn't matter. Still 100 mean regression. So what? Did someone sell the top and wait a couple of years to buy the bottom at the? No, you didn't have the 100. The 100 wasn't drawn back here. There was no 100 on the map back then. So you never saw it coming. I guess the 50 was the monthly 50. In that regard, this is a hell of a divergence to the downside between February and now. Much larger aberration to the downside than what occurred in 2022, right into the monthly 100. Curve back down to 71 cents. Globally charged structurally. I mean, this section right here is just. I mean, that's such a lovely section. Just a lovely chart. Spell back at 7. Wow, 0.0007. Volatile as all hell. Look at that. Look how volatile that is. And that's on the logarithmic chart too. Let's turn off logarithmic. Oof, oof, oof. And it's literally like triple bottom of sorts in many regards, but this is the little pair that could. DXY still trying to hold below 101, way below 102, which is the 50 SMA on the monthly. Not going to get any answers today. Not going to get any answers today. What is it, the 14th? Check back at the end of the month. Go by the monthly. You need, let's say, another 2 3 candles. So it's May, June, July, August. Okay, June, July, August, and you'll have a better picture of what the hell is going on in the DXY. You need to put another 3 candles on this chart. Let's see what happens with the 50 SMA. Let's see a punch below the 100 SMA. Ave back above 200. Then you get better go pricing. That's nice. That's something I did as well. A little bit of go exposure. I kept it very limited. Close. I got, where did I have it? In the dollar section. Oh, buy DeFi money. I'm going to close the page. Bye bye. I'll miss you. That was nice. Steak. Hey, get an Ave. Yay. I got to claim one Ave. That's cool. Get the hell out of here. That's how much it's worth? That's crazy. That's actually really crazy. Like everyone out there is like, crypto's not moving. I mean, I bought that for like 5 grand. That's crazy. 12,253. And that's cool. This will be nice in 10 years. No joke. I mean, literally, was it like, what's the market cap? Really? What's the market cap of Aave? $3 billion. It's a $3 billion market cap. 300 billion puts it into banking territory, and what? The world's not going to inflate, so 300 bill, great. That is not the most unreasonable target. It goes to 300 billion. Was this 10 mil times 10? No, that's times 100. It's 1.2 mil. If Aave is a 300 billion market cap business within the next 10 years, this tiny little position turns into 1 point. That's cool. Okay, so that's the point of diversification, and that's the point of time, and that's the point of understanding comps, which is a real estate concept, and that's the point of understanding peers. Time is the hardest thing because you know what I just said. 10 years. Hey, what we do? 10 years. What are you doing for the next 10 years? You might as well have some shit in your back pocket just in case some shit goes down. It's that kind of thing. You buy $1,000 worth of something, and it turns out to be worth 100 grand, and you're like, "Oh, that's cool," because then you could buy your kids a car, or then you could put a down payment on your kids' home, or you could help them with student debt. I don't know. What's $1,000? You see, you save for a month an extra thousand, and you buy something. That's what investing is. You get some things wrong, and some things you get right, and some things you get really right. Do you ever consider stablecoin LPs? No, I would. So yes, I think about it a lot, and I wish I had more money. I don't have enough money. Um, because if you get 10% on the money and you take in minimal risk compared to 5%, fine. So you put in some work for 10%, and you're talking $2 million or $1 million in a stablecoin LP, talking 100, $200,000 a year. Okay, now you're talking. That's a lot of money. But putting 10 grand into a stablecoin LP to make 10%. All right, fine. 500 to $1,000 a year or less, not considering risk. I don't know. I'd rather do other things with my time. That's my 2 cents. So I do think about stablecoin LPs, and I wish I had more money. In which case, I would take advantage of the a 5, 10, 15% potential return on stablecoins. That's my 2 cents there. Let's close up the tabs. Last couple of questions. Many people struggle with time in this space. No, no, it's not even in this space. Most people struggle with time, which is why kids get it all wrong with investing. Time is so powerful. The biggest component of investing is literally time. And kids have the most of it if you're 18, 19, 20, and they get it all wrong. I told the story of the 18-year-old that doesn't go to college and goes to Best Buy and just, compound average growth rate of 30% on Bitcoin over the next 10 years, and they compound 40 grand a year of a 50 grand salary. You're literally 30 years, 18 to 30, you're 30 years old with like $3 million in the bank making 300 grand a year. So if kids understood the value of time and a little bit of compound interest, compound average growth rate in particular, um, people would be better off when they got older. I'm prepared to check back in 5, 8 years to see what I've created. Exactly. Fuck, in my 40s and I'm prepared to check back with 2030. That's the whole point. Learn the value of time, and time converts knowledge and patience into money, which is what Buffett always said. The markets are the greatest tool to convert money or transfer money from short-term investors to long-term investors. What are any OPSEC tips you have regarding number of wallets, spreading of assets? So as much as don't no one should really know what you have. OPSEC, that's probably the most important thing. Most people don't know what I have. I don't really have anything. I did okay. I'm not any of the crazy crypto barons or the big social media names. I'm just a relatively humble educator that has crazy, outlandish ideas of how to do things differently. That fully round trip 2021. And I did it for psychological reasons because I defined a sustainable mentality. that I'm comfortable with and that I understand. Is it going to make the most money? No. But is it going to allow me to be the most comfortable? Yes. So that's a very big OPSEC thing. Don't No one should know really what you're working with. That's very important. Um, Complicated topic as we hear in social media. Um, Not just most lately or most recently. That has been a popular topic over the years. OPSEC tick. I mean, clearly, if you're locking things, you can't. I mean, you can diversify wallets. Listen, make sure you have an offline seed and don't put it online. You don't have an opportunity to get that one wrong. You got to get it right. And if you get it right, you're fine. Frankly, you're fine even with a 10-word seed phrase. Um, just the big number mathematics behind it. There's more high value targets and there's more like active phishing and attacks that could be done against high net worth individuals. I mean, no one's going after small people. It's a cost benefit analysis. What's the point? What's the benefit? Go after someone with $100 million and call it a day. Leave the little people alone. Go after someone with $10 million and leave the little people alone. Go after someone with $1 million. Leave the little people alone. There's more of a benefit. So, good OPSEC is good wallet hygiene. Keep things locked. The approvals. Make sure your approvals are revoked. Um, Maybe keep stablecoins on a separate address. I don't know. It's not a bad idea. But if you revoke your permissions, why does it matter? I mean, maybe it's from like a privacy standpoint. That's about it. But everyone's going to see the transaction chain. It's going to come out of a primary wallet from locked assets and go into a savings account. Does it matter? My 2 cents, ladies and gentlemen, don't drive yourself nuts. My 2 cents is the same with regard to OPSEC, with regard to investing. Keep it simple. You're going to drive yourself nuts overthinking things. That's when people make mistakes, when you overthink things. Keep things simple. Let time pass. Hope that helps. Joel, good afternoon. Much a pleasure, everybody. Wednesday, May 14th at 1:05 p.m. Thank you all for joining me today. 147 people made it to the end of the stream, and you are all now a little bit more rational because of it. Enjoy your week. Stay calm, cool, and collected. This is a period of indecisiveness, as we see in the chart here. Got to let these things play out. Give it another 2, 3 candles on this chart from a monthly perspective. We'll know more towards the summertime, especially towards the end of the summertime. And this is surely, in my opinion, going to be a very interesting year. I will see you guys and gals later this week, if anything. Until then, be well. Peace.